fresh waves of information are surfacing about one of the strangest and most talked about vanishings in reality TV history. Shelby Stanga, better known to millions as the Swamp Man, once ruled the History Channel with his untamed energy, jaw-dropping survival skills, and a chainsaw that seemed glued to his hand. Then, out of nowhere, he was gone. No emotional send-off episode, no press release, no goodbye post, just total radio silence. For years, fans have been desperate to know the real story. Off-camera sources now point to a perfect storm of clashing with producers, deep emotional exhaustion, a shocking arrest, and a man who was simply never wired to handle the Hollywood spotlight. Locals insist Shelby quietly slipped back into the Louisiana wetlands he never really left, living far from the glare of fame. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss the full, unfiltered truth about one of television's wildest legends. Tonight, we're pulling back the curtain on the rise, the sudden retreat, and the hidden life of the man the swamp still claims as its undisputed king. Long before a single camera crew ever stepped foot in his world, Shelby Stanga was forged in one of the harshest, most unforgiving corners of America, the flooded cypress forests around Ponchatoula, Louisiana. Born sometime around 1960, Shelby came into a life where the constant chorus of bullfrogs was louder than any radio, where electricity was spotty at best, and paved roads were a distant rumor. His family lived so deep in the wetlands that storm surges slapped against the stilts of their house and black water crept right up to the doorstep. While most kids were learning their times tables, Shelby was learning how to pole a pirogue through tangled timber without dumping himself into snake-infested water. His mother, fiercely protective and deeply wary of the outside world, made the unusual decision to keep him out of public school entirely. She was afraid city influences, peer pressure, and modern ideas would ruin him. So she homeschooled him by kerosene lantern, using whatever tattered books she could get her hands on. Shelby's real education, though, happened out on the marsh. His report card was written in scars, near misses, and hard-earned instinct. By age 8 he could navigate flooded forests solo. By 10 he could spot a cottonmouth from the flick of its tail. At 13 he was already dragging massive sinker cypress logs out of knee-deep mud, back-breaking work that grown men twice his size avoided. People in the area still talk about the wild-haired kid who vanished into the woods at dawn and came back at dusk reeking of moss, pine sap, and two-stroke exhaust. Some swear they watched him muscle logs the size of pickup trucks using nothing but rope, leverage, and sheer willpower. Others say he talked to his chainsaws like they were old friends who understood every word. Tall tales and truth blurred together, but everyone agreed on one thing: Shelby wasn't like anybody else. Cut off from classmates, playgrounds, and normal childhood noise, he invented his own language, thick swamp drawl mixed with made-up phrases that left outsiders scratching their heads. Fitting in was never on his radar. Instead, he learned to read the swamp the way sailors read the sea, the way the wind shifts before a squall, the sudden hush that means a gator is close, the subtle ripple that says something underwater is hunting you. That isolation produced a personality no writer could invent. While other boys dreamed of being firefighters or pro athletes, Shelby's only dream was to outsmart whatever the swamp threw at him next. His childhood wasn't lonely, it was boot camp. By the time TV crews finally showed up decades later, viewers weren't watching an actor playing a role. They were watching the finished product of a human being raised by mud, thunder, and raw survival. Even before the cameras arrived, Shelby's name was already legend along the Louisiana backwaters. Fishermen, log salvagers, and shade tree mechanics all had a Shelby story. Some claimed they saw him pull a half-submerged cypress knee the size of a sedan through waist-deep muck while laughing like a madman the entire time. Others insisted he once freedived for hours in coffee-black water to chain up century-old sunken logs worth thousands. Outsiders rolled their eyes and called them exaggerations. Locals just smiled and never bothered to argue, because to them, that was simply Shelby being Shelby. In the late 2000s, word of this chainsaw-slinging, mud-covered wild man reached producers who were casting for the History Channel's Axe Men. They rolled into Ponchatoula expecting to screen dozens of colorful characters. Instead, they met one man they literally could not look away from. Shelby didn't audition, he simply existed at full volume. He didn't pose, didn't rehearse, didn't slow down when they asked him to do that again for the camera. He just lived, loud and chaotic and hilarious. The producers didn't cast him, they surrendered to him. When his first episode aired in 2009, something electric happened, viewers were hooked. Shelby didn't just cut timber, he fought the swamp like it owed him money. He sweet-talked his saws, cussed out trees that fought back, and cackled when gators got too curious. Fear wasn't in his operating system. To an audience drowning in fake drama, Shelby felt like pure oxygen. Clips went viral overnight. Fans rewound the moments he dove face-first into the muck or unleashed streams of swamp slang that needed subtitles. Late-night hosts joked that English was his second language and Gator was his first. Memes exploded, t-shirts flew off shelves, ratings soared, and network executives scrambled to figure out how to bottle the lightning they'd accidentally caught. Their solution? Give the man his own show. And just like that, the legend of Shelby Stanga, Swamp Man, was born, a series with no script, no safety net, just one untamed human doing what he'd always done, only now with cameras rolling. At first, the fame felt like a wild ride Shelby could handle. Millions tuned in not for the logs or the machinery, but for the unpredictable force of nature covered in mud. Production crews started following him everywhere, through honey-hole swamps, abandoned junkyards, even the parking lot of the local grocery store. The network's mantra became, "Film everything." Shelby rolled with it at the start, signed the releases, let the cameras tag along, brushed off questions about his private life. But as the spotlight grew hotter, cracks started to appear. Crew members noticed he hated being told when to speak, where to stand, or how long to hold a chainsaw for the perfect shot. Even tiny requests, like pulling the starter cord again for sound, could spark a flash of irritation. Old friends back home saw him avoiding familiar boat launches because strangers might recognize him. The ghost of the swamp had become public property. Producers pushed for bigger stunts, louder outbursts, more viral moments to feed the beast they'd created. Viewers, without realizing it, kept demanding more of the man himself. But Shelby had never been a performance, he was the real deal. The second the industry tried to mold him into a marketable caricature, something inside him pushed back. Later episodes show the subtle shift, the manic laughter comes less often, long quiet stares replace the non-stop commentary, a flicker of annoyance crosses his face when a director asks for one more take. Editors trimmed those moments to keep the myth alive, but devoted fans noticed. The guy who used to sprint across floating logs now sometimes looked like he was searching for the nearest exit. Then the real world started knocking. Fans tracked him down at gas pumps, in the aisles of hardware stores, even on remote backwaters where privacy used to be sacred. They wanted autographs, selfies, or just to hear that wild laugh in person. Some couldn't take no for an answer and treated him like a theme park character instead of a human being. Normal conversations turned into impromptu performances, and Shelby had never rehearsed a single line in his life. Between filming blocks he started vanishing for hours, no warning, no explanation, just gone, back into the woods to breathe. Crews waited, budgets bled, producers panicked. When he strolled back in covered in fresh mud and grinning like nothing happened, it cost thousands in wasted time, but Shelby didn't know or care about production schedules. Publicly he was still the lovable lunatic. Privately, the constant watching was starting to feel like a trap. The swamp that had always been his sanctuary was now filled with strangers yelling "action" and "cut." For a man who had spent half a century answering only to thunder and tide, being micromanaged by television felt like suffocation. The first unmistakable warning sign? Shelby stopped laughing the way he used to, then came the incident that made national headlines. According to police reports, Shelby entered private property during a heated land dispute wielding a running chainsaw, allegedly threatening neighbors and refusing to stand down when deputies arrived. To fans who only knew the goofy, fearless swamp man, the story was unthinkable. Memes turned dark, comment sections erupted, and the invincible legend suddenly looked very human, and very troubled. Locals, though, weren't shocked that they'd watched film crews invade their waterways for years. They'd seen tourists in rental boats circling like paparazzi. The peaceful swamp had become a circus, and Shelby was the main attraction whether he liked it or not. Behind the scenes, the whispers grew louder. Camera operators talked about outbursts the second someone tried to direct him. Directors admitted he would walk off set mid-scene without a word. Production assistants described mood swings that came out of nowhere. The wild charm viewers adored was starting to look a lot like untreated stress and burnout. Rumors swirled: he wanted more money, he hated the way editors turned real struggle into slapstick, he was done being a cartoon. One insider allegedly summed it up: Shelby never wanted to be a character, but television only knows how to sell characters. Fans who rewatched his final episode saw the haunting change for themselves. The trademark grin looked forced. The explosive laugh barely showed up. He rarely bantered with the crew anymore. Dark circles appeared under his eyes. It was as if the spotlight was burning away the very thing that made him magical. And then, as abruptly as he had exploded onto screens across America, Shelby Stanga simply disappeared from television. No farewell special, no tearful goodbye, no "where are they now" segment, just silence. One season ended, the swamp door slammed shut, and the spin-off show died without its heartbeat. The network never gave an official explanation. Shelby stopped answering calls, declined every interview, and vanished from public view. To millions of fans it felt like their favorite wild man had been erased. Online, one question echoed louder than any chainsaw ever could: what really happened to Shelby Stanga? After the 2014 arrest, most people assumed he'd come back swinging, address the controversy, maybe even film a comeback season. Instead, nothing. New episodes aired without a single mention of him, no archived footage, no closure. It was as if the network quietly scrubbed him from the roster. Fans flooded forums begging for answers, but the only response was silence. Rumors filled the vacuum: he refused to sign another contract, he was furious about being edited into a clown, he was physically and mentally exhausted. Off-camera sources said the smile fans loved had been gone for months. Locals, however, saw a different picture. To them, Shelby never really went anywhere. They spotted him back in Ponchatoula doing exactly what he'd always done, fixing boat motors behind gas stations, yanking sunken logs from the black water, cracking jokes with old friends before the sun was fully up. His wife Donna, the quiet anchor in his life, reportedly helped shield him once the fame grew too heavy. Grainy fan videos still pop up online every few months: Shelby filling up his truck, buying chainsaw bar oil, hauling timber through the mud, looking weathered but calm, healthy, and most of all free. To the outside world he's missing. To the swamp, he's exactly where he's supposed to be. As time passed, more pieces of the story trickled out. Former crew members admitted Shelby wasn't just tired, he was overwhelmed. The man who once spent days alone with nothing but mosquitoes and alligators suddenly had boom mics in his face, producers on his tail, and deadlines hanging over every sunrise. What viewers celebrated as glorious chaos, production quietly labeled unmanageable. Close friends say the constant attention triggered real anxiety, nothing dramatic or Hollywood style, just a quiet, growing need to escape watching eyes. He stopped answering his phone. He avoided busy stores. Interview offers were ignored without a second thought. For someone raised completely off-grid, being perpetually on felt like a cage with invisible bars. The arrest wasn't the breaking point, it was the flare gun. Fame had been changing him for a while. The pressure was bending something deep inside. Every raw moment captured on camera got sliced, diced, and turned into a punchline, and for a man who prided himself on being 100% real, that felt like betrayal. Psychologists who study reality TV say it happens more often than people realize. Stars pushed past their limits, then quietly crumble once the cameras stop rolling. Then there's Donna, the woman locals credit with pulling him back from the edge. One neighbor put it simply, Donna kept him grounded. She reminded him that being loved by strangers doesn't mean a thing if you stop recognizing the man in the mirror. Producers kept asking for bigger reactions. Fans kept begging for wilder moments. The internet never sleeps. But Shelby was never built to perform on command. He hated scripts, despised retakes, and when the machine tried to shape him into something he wasn't, he did the one thing it couldn't monetize: he walked away. These days, when a lucky fan spots him at the hardware store or pumping gas, they notice something new in his eyes: peace. No cameras, no expectations, just a man back doing what he was born to do. And while the world argues over his disappearance, the truth is simpler than anyone wants to admit. Sometimes the wildest thing a wild creature can do is refuse to stay in the cage, yet here's the twist: even after he vanished from TV, Shelby's legend only grew. Old clips started resurfacing on YouTube, TikTok, and Reels, millions of new viewers discovering the muddy, laughing madman for the first time. Younger generations crowned him an instant folk hero, proof that pure authenticity still exists. People joke that when the apocalypse hits, Shelby will be the guy who builds a mansion out of sunken cypress, catches dinner with his bare hands, and jury-rigs the generator from a lawnmower engine and duct tape. But underneath the memes is genuine admiration. Shelby didn't just entertain, he reminded us what real freedom looks like. He lived outside the rules, outside the algorithm, outside the noise. While other reality stars meticulously curate their image, perfect lighting, rehearsed one-liners, manufactured drama, Shelby did the opposite. He showed up filthy, in torn clothes, with a chainsaw he probably rebuilt himself. That refusal to polish anything became his superpower. Outdoor channels still study his episodes like textbooks. Content creators break down his unpredictability and realize raw truth beats scripted chaos every single time. Swamp tourism in Ponchatoula quietly boomed because of him. And the greatest irony of all? The mystery itself, the total lack of answers, only made the legend stronger. Every few months another blurry video surfaces: Shelby wrenching on an outboard motor, Shelby knee-deep in mud wrestling a log, Shelby throwing his head back in that same wild laugh. Each clip drives home the same point: the swamp man never actually disappeared. He just turned the cameras off and walked back into the trees. Today, when people look back on Shelby Stanga, they see more than a forgotten reality star. They see a living reminder of something the modern world is rapidly losing: a human being who never needed permission to be exactly who he is. In an age obsessed with likes, views, and personal branding, Shelby's most rebellious act wasn't becoming famous, it was choosing to disappear the moment fame stopped feeling like freedom. His story now travels mouth to mouth like true Bayou folklore, half fact, half myth, exactly the way swamp legends are supposed to be told. Some swear they saw him single-handedly drag a submerged log the size of a box truck using nothing but a come-along and pure grit. Others insist he rode out a hurricane in a half-sunken fishing camp with nothing but a bottle of whiskey and his chainsaw. Maybe it happened. Maybe it doesn't matter. What matters is the feeling he leaves behind: untamed, unfiltered, unbreakable authenticity. Television has moved on, churning through louder personalities and flashier gimmicks, but nothing has ever recaptured the pure lightning Shelby carried in his veins. New fans still stumble across his old episodes every day, stunned that someone like him was ever real, and even more stunned to learn he still is, right now, somewhere out in the Ponchatoula wetlands, walking the water's edge, chasing the next piece of sunken treasure, laughing at a private joke only he and the swamp understand. He never posted a farewell statement because he never felt the need to say goodbye. His exit was as simple as it gets: cameras off, chainsaw fired up, swamp calling him home. And in a world that screams for constant attention, choosing to vanish might just be the most powerful legend of all. So if you're ever creeping down some steamy Louisiana back road at dusk and you hear the distant roar of a chainsaw mixed with wild, echoing laughter cutting through the cattails, don't worry. That's just the swamp man doing what he's always done. Not for ratings, not for followers, not for anyone's approval. Just because that's who he is, and always will be.